Hello and welcome to Taiwan Talks. I'm Yi Kavat. The Pentagon has confirmed that a Chinese nuclear submarine sank earlier this year at a pier in Wuhan. The news comes as Beijing tested an intercontinental ballistic missile, or ICBM, with a dummy warhead, the first time in 40 years outside its own borders. In addition, China deployed all three of its aircraft carriers at the same time, which some reports say is a first. What message is China sending to the United States and its allies? Joining us today are Ying-yu, Tamkang University Graduate Institute of International Affairs and Strategic Studies Assistant Professor, and Guermantes Lailari, Institute for National Defence and Security Research Visiting Scholar. A very warm welcome to both of you on the show today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
China's nuclear threat is a pressing concern for the US. The Pentagon last year said that Beijing had about 500 operational warheads and was looking to expand to more than 1,000 by 2030. It's all part of President Xi Jinping's push to achieve a world-class military by 2049. The Pentagon estimates that China's naval force operates 12 nuclear-powered submarines and 48 diesel-powered submarines, and it's on pace for a total of 65 by 2025. However, the sinking in May or June of China's most advanced Zhou-class nuclear attack sub before going into service could represent a setback to China's ambitions to achieve a nuclear triad. Guermantes, let me come to you first. So what kind of setback do you think this incident provides?
Well, I don't think it's a major setback for a variety of reasons. First of all, every country has these problems. It's not new. The U.S. had the same problem in the late 60s. They had a similar incident. But I am not in agreement with the reports that it was a nuclear submarine. I think that it was a diesel-powered submarine because the Bohai shipyard is where the nuclear submarines are, and this one was at Wuhan, and Wuhan has the diesel submarines. So I'm not convinced that it was a SSN.
So why do you think the Pentagon said that it was a nuclear sub?
There is some indication that the PLA Navy might be experimenting with a small nuclear power for their AIP. Their, let me get the word here. It's the air-independent powered part of the submarine, which allows them to stay underwater for a longer period of time. And so if they have a nuclear-powered, small power, nuclear engine to make this work, they would extend the amount of time that they could stay underwater. That's as close as I can think that this is nuclear powered in the sense that not the power itself for the submarine isn't nuclear, but rather the AIP system is nuclear.
Right.
Yes.
Professor Lin, what do you think of that?
I think the water is not deep enough to let the nuclear submarine can be have in there. But in this trend, it is showing American want to showing we have capability.
But why would they say it was a nuclear-powered submarine when you say, frankly, the water isn't deep enough? Surely the Pentagon would know that. Guermantes.
Again, like I said, I think, I suspect it was focused on the power of the AIP system, not the power of making the submarine.
So are you saying that the media reported it incorrectly?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And then the other part of it was if the nuclear part of it wouldn't be installed in it until it left the port and to a place where they could install it. This is not a simple task, and Wuhan is not designed for that. And furthermore, this is the last part. This area is where over 50% of the food of China goes down the river. And, it's a very dangerous place to have a nuclear accident. I mean, it'll affect the food, affect the water, and everything. So I don't think there was a nuclear part to this part.
Okay.
And especially sometimes if yes, it's a nuclear submarine, it needs to near the ocean, like in the Qingdao or in the Hainan Island. This in Wuhan, that is a big city. It will be big trouble.
Right.
The Yangtze River, is the source of the food supply of China. So I don't think it's a high risk thing to do.
Okay. In that case, for this attack sub, where you say the component itself was nuclear, how does that impact that? Is that a setback then if this kind of sub sinks.
Yes. It's a setback in the sense of the delay, and that it's possible it was just a simple mistake. Someone left the hatch open and the submarine sank.
So you're saying it's not the Zhou class submarine?
I'm saying it's the Yuan class type 39A or B, or maybe C class, Yuan class. And it's a propulsion attack submarine, AIP. I don't think it was an SSN.
Right, okay. So in terms of the targets that I mentioned, Professor Lin, that have been reported about, they have 60 at the moment. They want to essentially have another 65 in total by 2025. Do you think this incident, means a setback for that goal?
Yeah, I would be saying that was a different view. His weapon side acumen is good. But how to using the weapon to fighting, that still is your officer, you're a soldier. Problem is the manager. The manager is not only in the military force inside his capability. We need to also watching his factory manager or like this issue. So sometimes I still think in the military power, if we are just to calculate his how many gun, how many missile, how many jet fighter, PLA, his capability will be rising. It will be modernization in 2035. But if we can watching his capability, maybe they cannot reach in the 2035.
Right. Okay. So on September 25th, for the first time in 4 decades, China test-fired an ICBM outside its own territory. Here's the Chinese Ministry of National Defense.
9月25日8时44分，中国人民解放军火箭军向太平洋相关公海海域成功发射一发携载训练模拟弹头的洲际弹道导弹，准确落入预定海域。此次导弹发射是年度军事训练例行性安排，符合国际法和国际惯例，不针对任何特定国家和目标。
Guermantes, so what do you make of China's description of this as being routine, and anything about the timing?
Well, I wouldn't say it's routine if it's once every 44 years. So that's not an accurate description. But what I do think, though, that there was 2 parts of this. There was the political part and the technical part. I'll start with the technical. The technical part, every country has to test its weapon systems. What China did in the past is launch missiles within itself. In other words, they would fire them from the coast to the Gobi Desert. That was a standard practice. This is the first time in 44 years that they actually launched a missile into the Pacific. And so they have to test it because that's the range that they want it to go. So obviously it was a success. There are some commentators that say on the technical side that the warhead, although it was a dummy warhead, might have had some unique additional characteristics that were not seen before. So, for example, it could have been a maneuvering warhead as opposed to just a simple warhead.
So a maneuvering warhead does what?
A maneuvering warhead makes makes it difficult for the country being attacked to shoot it down. It's much harder to shoot down a maneuvering warhead because usually there's a path that's called a ballistic path, and it's predictable, and you can shoot a missile to hit the missile. But if it's maneuvering, you don't know where it's going to be, so your missile might not make it. On the political side, this was, I think, a message to a lot of different groups. First of all, it was internal to demonstrate that the rocket forces are still competent. As we know, last year there was lots of firings and lots of people disappearing and all that. Externally, I think also the countries that it was launched near got the message that they could be struck by China if China wanted to do that. And there are several other political aspects, such as it was almost the same time as the UN was meeting. There was also in Congress approved the FSM countries were given their extended budget. So there are a lot of things happening at the same time.
Right. Yeah. Professor Lin, I mean, do you think that we should be asking the question, why has China left it so long, 40 years between tests?
Yes, I think why is so long, because I think the first thing is in the before they have the Dongfeng 5, that is an hour-of-a-day missile. So in this time, they have the more focus of Dongfeng 31 or Dongfeng 41, the new type of missile. But as we know, when we're watching his technology, not only in missile technology, we also watching like the Beidou. Beidou system is like China's GPS like this. It can be control the missile, where to the flying, about that. And another thing, we have to watching the timing. The timing is before October 1st. October 1st, as we know, is a mainland China. They will be say that's a very important day. So
that's
before that,
China's national day.
His national day.
Okay.
His national
Xi
day.
Jinping's
Xi Jinping's day. So he will be showing his capability. So before we can watch him, he have new jet fighter, aircraft carrier, and this time is rocket force, especially rocket force.
To say maybe that purge of the PLA rocket leadership was successful.
Now it can be work and ready to fight.
Right, okay. Now, Guillermo, just very briefly, what does that successful test and the maneuvering warhead, what does it say about China's nuclear ambitions?
It says that their rocket, their DF-31 works as advertised. That's number one. Number two, it builds confidence in their military in terms of, and their political leadership, that if whenever they're ordered to launch a missile, it'll launch and it'll land in the place that they want it to land in. And I think the most important thing is that if you take a look at sort of where it could have gone, the range, and you make a big circle around the Earth on that, you'll notice it'll hit several countries such as Australia, India, even as far as Israel. These are all countries within the range of the DF-31.
Yeah, we'll take a look at one of those maps later on. Chinese officials said relevant countries had received notification of the test. The US confirmed this, saying Beijing's notification was a step in the right direction and would help prevent misunderstanding or miscalculation. However, many countries in the region weren't notified. Taiwan expressed stern condemnation. Australia sought an explanation from China, and New Zealand called the incident an unwelcome and disturbing development. The US spokesperson said China's move represents a common sense, confidence-building measure, so we want to see these types of notifications continue. Professor Lin, China ally Kiribati came out recently criticizing Beijing, saying the Pacific is not isolated pockets of ocean and it does not welcome this kind of test. So it seems that there's a bit of an inverse, isn't it? This time, the US seems to be quite satisfied with the way that China has conducted itself.
I will be seeing that in this time, Beijing, he wants to connect with American because he will be saying this is a new normal. The American is start to connect with the mainland China. When the Pentagon directs connect to the PLA, the Indo-Pacific, theater commander, also to meet the main pillar A, the South theater, the commander. So the military to military meeting, or we can say that the military diplomacy will be reset. So in the American, also he want to mainland China, he will become like a responsible stakeholder.
So they want to encourage that behavior from China. Guillermo, but do you think that there was a diplomatic blunder by not informing the vast majority of the other countries?
Yes, I do. Typically, whenever you do a missile test, there will be what they call a notice to airmen and mariners, a NOTAM. And NOTAMs are designed to give areas for ships and airplanes to avoid during the missile test. In this case, they didn't issue a NOTAM, which everyone in the world would see and avoid. The DF-31 has 3 stages. That means that there are 3 parts that fell from the sky into the ocean.
We'll go on to that in a little bit, but if you could tell me why you think China didn't do that.
Well, there's several reasons, but I think probably the first reason is they didn't think that they needed to. I mean, that's a possible reason. But when they launch satellites, they make a NOTAM. So I don't understand why they wouldn't. And it could be the other reason, which it could be just arrogance. We don't need to tell anybody else, and that's it.
But we'll tell our greatest rival.
We'll tell our greatest rival how strong we are. Yeah.
Okay, right. So let's take a look at the estimated route of the missile, which likely traveled eastward toward the Pacific Ocean over the Philippines, Guam, Micronesia, and Nauru before landing close to French Polynesia. So, Professor Lin, if you could make an assessment of, the danger for these countries. Guermantes started talking about the three parts to the DF-31.
I think although that's a three-part, but this country, they will be, yes, they will be thinking, okay, maybe one part will be low, will be fall down and have some danger. But for this country, the first thing they will be worried is mainland China's military capability. Yes, he means if the Dongfeng 31 can fly in and reach there, that is mean inside like the Japan or other country, in Taiwan or the Japan, sometimes. Yes, PLA, they have a nuke, but the nuke is not focused on them because we are too closing. So is this the Dongfeng 31 ICBM? His target is not this country.
So who is the target, do you suggest?
Yeah, I continue to say. They will be first is U.S. And then I think in the not only U.S., Beijing also will be understand that ICBM that is to showing is like in the Cold War in Soviet and the U.S. Because they have a nuclear power.
Okay. Guermantes, let's go to the map that we have of the ranges of the different missiles, and we can continue this theme about what you said about how it could be any number of different countries that could have been targeted. China's Ministry of National Defense did not announce the type of dummy missile launched this time. Analysts believe that the missile could have been a Dongfeng 41 or 31. China claims that Dongfeng 41 has a range of up to 15,000 kilometers, which would cover most of continental America and therefore most targets on Earth. We can see the Dongfeng 31 in red, I think?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, and 41 is in the pale purple color.
Right, so first of all, understand that these are the land-based missiles and they're centered on the central part of China. So if these missiles are moved in different parts of China, the rings would move in those directions, so it can cover more area. But as you can see, the DF-31 and the DF-41 can pretty much target most of the all of the United States. With the 41 and 31, the northern, the entire west coast and northern part of the United States.
Okay.
So what this means is that they're demonstrating that they can strike the United States anywhere in just a few minutes. Now, the problem is that the missiles on the submarines, the ICBMs on the submarines, can be anywhere in the world. So they can be off the coast of California. They can be anywhere. So they can launch, and their distances are shorter to the target. And I might add, too, that just because the range is far doesn't mean that these same missiles can't be used, let's say, against Japan or the Philippines or U.S. bases in the Pacific. So these are the maximum ranges.
You're disagreeing a little bit with what Professor Lin had said.
Yeah, these are the maximum ranges, but you can shoot the missile up higher and it goes shorter. And that's how these missiles work.
Right. Yeah. Professor Lin, so we're essentially talking about China wanting to be able to target or to reach the U.S. From the U.S.'s perspective, we know that China has around 350 ICBM missiles. How about the U.S.?
I think the American also, they have enough the nuke, but sometimes if yes, because that's a nuclear weapon, you have the 1 or 10 or 100, that is also will have the huge danger or the huge capability. If you launch the missile, but it cannot hit the target, that is still like the garbage.
Okay. Right.
So I think this part will be two sides also will be want to know each side's nuclear and including missile capability.
Yeah. Okay. So the accuracy of the systems and everything. We need to kind of move on. Let's go to the fact that in 2021, so 3 years ago, China did launch 2 tests of hypersonic gliders that can be carried into orbit by missiles, and again, potentially with nuclear warheads. So, Guermantes, what does all this say, this plus the ICBM test, about China's capabilities?
They're getting better. The U.S., I would say that China is probably more advanced in the hypersonic vehicles than the U.S. is. But in terms of the submarines, all of the U.S. submarines are nuclear powered. None of them are diesel powered. 71 nuclear powered. So U.S. is way ahead of China. It's going to take a long time for China to catch up. On the ICBMs, okay, so the U.S. has a total active, let's say, warheads of 1,500 that are currently targeting the entire world, okay? So China has 350, so they have a ways to go, but it's predicted by around the mid-2030s that China will catch up with the numbers. Now the question is the quality the same? We don't know. The DF-41, by the way, has 10 independently targeted warheads, whereas the DF-31 only has 1. So they're increasing their multiple warheads. So just because there's one missile that has 10 nuclear bombs on it. So these are things that the U.S. has built before, but because of their agreements with Russia, they've decreased the number of warheads on the missiles.
Let's briefly talk about how the U.S. tests its ICBM. I understand that it's done this over 300 times in history, and the last one was actually in June of this year. So what's the difference there, and how does that explain the reaction between China testing and the U.S. testing? Maybe Professor Lin.
I think the 200, yes, American, they also will have a lot of the tests, but sometimes it will be different. Like the American, he will be, in American, they still will be thinking it's a missile. That part is already done. Is already done is enough to the fighting. But when we to watching the PLA or the Beijing, he want to let the other country will be more understand. It's not focused on the nuclear weapon.
So are you saying that with the American launches, they're not political signals? They're simply to test. They're simply technical tests.
Yes, American it will be more want to maybe he want to change some of the missile and update. But the PLA he want to more showing yes I have the innovation that is the new generation will be coming that have a different meaning.
Okay, Guermantes, we're running out of time. I think also the ones in June were ICBMs, but they were not armed.
That's correct.
Which was a difference with the Chinese one. Now in September, China deployed all 3 of its aircraft carriers. So that's the Liaoning, the Fujian, and the Shandong. We have a map to show where they were. Now, my question to you is, what would these 3 aircraft carriers or the ability to deploy them, what does that mean for any Taiwan Strait or South China Sea crisis?
It means that China is communicating to Taiwan and its allies that the 3 carriers are operational and they can operate all 3 of them at the same time, which means that they can basically sustain them. So in a Taiwan contingency, let's say one of the carriers is on the east side of the island, and after a few weeks...
Which is where they increasingly are.
Yes, and then after a few weeks, it has to go back to port to get replenished. The difference, again, with the U.S. carriers and the PLA carriers is the U.S. carriers are nuclear powered. They can keep on going indefinitely and just get resupplied at sea, whereas it appears that the carriers that the PLA has to go back to port. So these 3 carriers can rotate in front of, on the east side of Taiwan, and maintain that what we call a picket, meaning they keep out other ships from coming to help Taiwan.
So the kind of the area denial scenario. Professor Lin, very final question to you. What does it say about China's ambitions to become a blue water navy, i.e. one that is no longer a regional navy, but a global one?
I want to, yes, they will want to become the global navy, but sometimes the aircraft carrier is not only to watch that aircraft carrier. We need to watch it as a jet fighter. So sometimes aircraft carrier is important, but it is the PLA, the fleets has still become the blue navy capability. I think they still need the time.
Okay.
One quick thought is what we see now with the PLA carrier deployments is the beginnings of surrounding the Philippines, going around the Philippines. We've already seen it around Taiwan. We've already seen it around Japan. All three countries are island nations. So this is predatory behavior, in my opinion.
Okay, we'll have to end it there. Thank you so much, Ying-yu and Guermantes Lailari, for joining Taiwan Talks today. If you liked our show, please search for us on YouTube, give us a thumbs up and hit subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching the show today. Stay safe and see you next time.
经历过人生的话，你发现说，我们大部分都是爱美。
我自己少遇见一朵花，我可能就不是这个样子。
开始思考什么叫做一个本土性。
大声的唱出来说我是台湾人。
In the face of adversity, the power of truth.
A roadmap for a just and open world, charted by the freest country in Asia.
Taipei for Taiwan Plus.
Taiwan Plus News, a voice of freedom in Asia.
经历过人生的话，你发现说，我们大部分都是爱美。
我自己少遇见一朵花，我可能就不是这个样子。
开始思考什么叫做一个本土性。
大声的唱出来说我是台湾人。